Okay, so in this lesson we're going to talk about area and perimeter. And perimeter. And one of the questions in the document at the bottom of the page is, it simply draws a rectangle, and I think the dimensions are 60 and 89.5 meters, and it simply says what is the perimeter of this field. Well, the main thing you've got to know about perimeter, pardon me, main thing you've got to understand is that wherever you start from, the perimeter is the distance all the way round the outside of the shape. So if you started at the blob there and you went along the top line and then you carried on down the side and then along here and then along here, and you do it in a straight line, not a wiggly line like I have done, then the perimeter is just the distance that you have travelled. So this person has travelled, if we start here and we go across the top, so they've travelled this distance first. Now this distance, because it's a rectangle, we know that this distance is the same as this. So they have travelled 89.5 metres. And then they travel downwards 60 meters. Now the important thing here is place value, and we get that. Okay, so now you might think that looks like 600. It's not. There is a decimal point which we can see very clearly there. So if we draw another arrow down there, so that's the distance they've traveled so far, and then along horizontally another 89.5, and then that distance there, and then up another 60 meters, 60, and we'll put 60.0 just to make sure that all the decimal points line up, and then all we have to do is add up all of those numbers. So 5 plus 5 is 10, so we have a 0 here and a 1 in the next column, just like any other column addition. However, because we've got decimal points, we need to put a decimal point just there. Okay, and then we've got 9, add 9 is 18, plus 1 is 19, so we have a 9 here, and then we have a 1 in the next column. And then we've got 6 and 8 is 14, and 8 is 22, and 6 is 28. Plus 1 is 29, so we've got 299. So the answer is 299 meters. Now if you've got any questions which ask you about the area of something, then if you remember, one of the ways that we can work out the area is if you draw the shape on squared paper in your maths book, like this for example, then what you can do is you can just count the squares. So we can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and another 8 is 16, and another 8 is 24, and another 8 is 32. So therefore the area is 32. But then what some of you will realise is that actually you don't have to count the squares, because all you have to do is count how many squares are there along there, and we said that the answer to that question is 8. How many squares go down, and the answer to that is 4. So there are 4 lots of 8. So 4 times 8 equals 32. And then, now I'll draw another diagram here so that we don't get too confused. And then, sticky outy, with area, we start to think, well, let's try and make it a little bit easier to understand. The 8 was the width of the rectangle, so for width we put a W, and 4 is the height. So for the height, instead of writing the word height, we write H. So now for a rectangle, the area equals the height times the width. Okay, So whatever the numbers are, you just put them into this calculation and that's it. That's all you have to do. Now, another type of question that they tend to ask you, which sometimes is a bit tricky, is if they've got squares, for example, and they've got a shape which is made up of a few squares, so it's just a kind of, well, it looks to be a random shape. Okay, so there's 1, 2, 3, so it looks like a kind of a Z shape, and what they might ask is, they might ask you to draw another shape which has got the same area. Okay, so all you have to do with this is think, well, the area is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going back to counting squares. So if the area is 5, then whatever you draw, so long as it's only taking up 5 squares, then that's okay. So for example, we could use this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's my shape, which has got the same area as this one. Now, just as a thought, I'm not going to actually do it, but just as a thought, will it have the same perimeter? Will all shapes with an area of 5 have the same perimeter? That's something for you to think about. With these questions, whether it's talking about draw a shape with the same shape as something else, sometimes they're a little bit tricky, and what they do is they draw the shapes on different type of paper. So it might be triangular paper, or it might be diamond shaped paper, which by the way is just squared paper turned round. Don't let that fool you. All you're doing is you're still counting the shaded bits. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. Okay, they might even do it, if they're being really nasty, is they might even do it on hexagonal shaped paper. Now I'm not going to draw loads and loads of these because they take a long time to draw, but once again, all you're doing is you're just going, right, is that shaded? Is that shaded? Just count the numbers of shaded shapes, and that's all you need to do.